Simpsons Index, an online spreadsheet that is also a podcast. This is the podcast.
Coming to you out of SideQuest Studios, this is the Simpsons Index, episode 313. Hello out there, I'm your host, Elliot Jay O'Neill, joined, here as always, except when he's not, by BT Calloway.
Ahoy hoy there, eh?
And joined all the way from the east coast of the Americas, we have Adam Schoales.
Hello there.
And Nate Storring.
Hey!
Hey,
Can
guys.
I just... Sorry to interrupt. I just gotta say, kudos on pronouncing my name correctly, because I don't think that's ever happened in my life.
He's gotten everything. I've heard him be called Schoales.
Yeah, Schoales.
That was probably the best.
I assume every time someone says that, there's just flamenco guitar in the background.
Pretty much.
Adam
Yeah.
Schoales.
Yeah. No, with Nate and I having been friends for like almost 20 years at this point, he's not kidding when he says he's... I mean, I've heard everything, but I think Nate at this point has also heard every possible pronunciation. Siri likes to go with Shales, which is really, like, it's not even close, but, you know, what can you do?
No, it's an interesting cluster of letters there, but no, I am a big fan of your podcast, the Springfield Googolplex, and normally would do like plugs at the end, but I think I need to front load this one because, as listeners will know, we've got another podcast called Starring Springfield because of our relentless plugging of it, and when I was like establishing it, doing the things you do, you know, setting up the social feeds, the podcast feed, etc., because there are a lot of Simpsons podcasts out there, I went, okay, just double checking, making sure nobody has done this idea of ours to review movies that star the cast of The Simpsons, just covering our bases because it happened to a recent guest on the podcast, Tommy Dasilo. He has a podcast called How to Do Everything, and he launched it and then found out NPR just also launched one of the same name. But he decided to go with it because...
Who's ever heard of NPR?
Yeah.
sorry. I mean, I need to say who has ever heard of NPR?
Who has ever heard of NPR? This is Terry Gross. But anyway, in the process of all that, no one had done our idea of doing movies that Simpsons people have been in, but you guys are covering movies that are referenced on The Simpsons.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thank you for the plug. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. It was Adam's idea originally. Who came to me and was like, I've always wanted to do this thing. And I am just the obsessive one that like catalogs all of the movies. It's funny. The other thing is, of course, we're the only two database-based Simpsons podcasts on the internet, I think. You know, maybe there's a third one out there that did it before both of us, but we have a big database of all those Simpsons references. Yeah.
Well, like, your guys' research is so goddamn impressive of the cataloging of the first 13 seasons on the, Springfield Googolplex database.
Well, that's all Nate. I cannot take any credit for that. That is all Nate. But we are both, like, weirdly obsessive. That's certainly a character trait of both of ours. And being the sort of like pop culture film nerds, it feels appropriate. So,
well, yeah, we are definitely that ourselves as well. So yeah, it's lovely to meet some like-minded nerds and some like-minded Simpsons nerds. And yeah, while we're not exactly covering the same premise, we do end up getting a bit of a crossover in covering a couple of the same movies. At least you guys have also covered This Is Spinal Tap and. Gosh, what was the other one? It's not coming to mind right now.
The Twilight Zone.
The movie, of course. Yes, that cursed
film.
And I think you guys also were covering Godzilla '98 around the time that we were covering the original Godzilla.
Yes.
Which was some real kismet.
Who fared off better in that one? Listen to the podcast to find out.
You decide.
I saw Godzilla '98 in theaters when it came out for my best friend's, like, I guess it would have been his like 8th birthday party. Or 9th birthday party, and haven't seen it since.
Birthday.
So that maybe tells you everything you need to know, is that I didn't feel the need to ever revisit that one.
Yeah, I saw that in the theaters, and it was just this run of really bad movies for me as like an 11 or 12-year-old or whatever, and I was like wondering, are movies actually good? Where it was like, I don't remember what order, but each weekend it was Godzilla, Deep Impact, and then Armageddon, and I was just like, I don't think I like movies.
Yeah, that was not a good summer.
But back to The Simpsons. we like to talk about Simpsons history here. So, guys, where did the show begin with you? Where did this Simpsons obsession start? We'll start with Nate.
Sure. I mean, I think the big story for Adam and I is just, we have the same story as many young men who grew up in the 90s in Canada, where The Simpsons was on syndication, like an insane amount, an absolutely insane amount. It was like you could literally watch it for like 2 straight hours every night of the week if you wanted to.
Oh, wow.
And you bet there were nights where I did. But for Adam and I, part of it was just that, like, when we met in grade 9, it was just this like instantaneous, like, secret language that we had where we were just talking back and forth in Simpsons references.
Nice.
So yeah, that's like the short version.
Yeah, being able to speak Simpsons is, it feels like you're part of a special club as well. And yeah, doing this podcast and having different guests on most weeks, and just like, it's nice that, the initial barriers of small talk and whatever are just broken down instantly. It's just...
I literally, at my previous job, I remember going to the second round interview, and in the interview, someone dropped a Simpsons reference, and I they sort of they volleyed it up, and then I served it back to them, and that's when I was like, okay, I definitely can work here, and we instantly bonded, and I don't know that that's the reason I got the job, but I do have there's a part of me that's like, job. I think he certainly was endeared to me because of the Simpsons references, and it is, as Nate says, it's one of those things where you don't even necessarily recognize that you're doing it with certain people. And I will drop references in front of my wife, and she will just sort of look at me inquisitively, and there'll be a beat, and then she'll go, "Was that a Simpsons reference?" And I go,
yeah.
So, but which is funny only because then I'll talk to her brother, who's 7 years older than her, and I can make the same reference, and he will just start cracking up hysterically, whereas it goes completely over her head. So it's it is this sort of stonecutter secret handshake that you can instantly bond with people over.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like walking to a room and just going, dental plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a version of Marco Polo,
Yeah.
So the follow-up to that question is, where are you at with The Simpsons now? And I suppose that ties in with your podcast as well, but you guys have kind of limited your scope just to the first 13 seasons. Smart. I can tell you that just from our own research, doing the next, 22 or whatever seasons that are currently available, it's probably way too much work to catalog all those movie references, and not as rewarding. But are you guys keeping up with the show? Are you watching new episodes, or just going back and revisiting the classics when you got to do them for the podcast? Where are you at with the show now?
I mean, it's interesting. Again, it's not a judgment call on the show. I think picking season 13 was sort of twofold. It was around the time that Nate and I met was when those seasons were airing, and also when around the time, because we got busier in life, we were teenagers and things start to evolve and your tastes change, that maybe our sort of adamant we got to watch the new episodes as they air sort of thing started to peter off. But it was also sort of around the time that the DVDs sort of also started to taper off. They then sort of revisited a few of the later seasons, or they sort of caught up. But I feel like season 13 was also kind of the period where those DVDs, the iconic DVDs, started to stop being produced. So it felt like a solid kind of end point. And as you say, with 30, what are we on now? Season 37?
Airing 36, 37 will start in a month or something.
36, yeah. You can't do it all. So you have to pick some point to sort of make that draw that line in the sand. So, but certainly I know Nate has obviously, and he can speak to this, has obviously been rewatching these, and he's been really diligent about keeping up with watching the new seasons. As we sort of mentioned before we started recording, and I famously talk about on our show all the time, I have a toddler, and so I have very limited, consumption time, media consumption time these days. Even just finding the time to watch the episode and the film for what we're going to record. There have been nights where Nate and I have showed up to record, and I have just finished watching the episode because I'm so far behind. So I will admit I'm not as up to date on the newest seasons, but the nice thing is that even for the episode we're going to talk about tonight, like getting to watch it, it makes me go, oh, like there's so much gold here that I haven't had a chance to mine. And like, I'm looking forward to actually like digging more into sort of the later stuff. And I'm going to try really, really hard this season to like actually stay on top of watching the new episodes as they are. I started last season and then got really, really busy and fell off. But this, I'm going to try really hard this year to stay on top of it. And Nate laughs because he knows like, yeah, you're going to last 2 weeks, dude.
No. I believe in you. You can do it. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like most of my time is spent with the first 13 seasons. One of the reasons why I like that cutoff is that you get most of the showrunners, right, in that time, where like you get the return of Al Jean with season 13, and you can see his influence coming back into the show. So you're like getting a lot of the evolution of the show in that period of time. But I have been watching more recently, and it's almost easier to go from the first 13 seasons to like, I think I started watching in season 35. So it's like season 35 and 36. It's like that's around the time where you start getting these articles being like, The Simpsons is good again, right? And I think it's definitely, I mean, you guys could speak to this, but it's more of an evolution than all that. But it does feel like such a clean break because the show is so different in season 35 that it's almost easier to accept in a weird way than like going through and watching all the ups and downs and changes over time. It's just like, I've just been able to kind of let go and be like, it's just a different show. It's like almost something completely different than it was in those first 13 seasons. It's like the pacing is different. The look is different. The sound is different. I mean, God knows the voice actors sound different. So it's like, I can just step back and accept that. And once you get over that hump, I've been really enjoying the recent seasons.
Yeah, I like that as putting it as an evolution of the show rather than it's bad or whatever, because it is more complicated than that. And is it good again? Well, we on our like overall rankings, we've noticed it's sort of back to like mid-teens level quality, which is definitely something. And like we certainly appreciate that they're going for like bigger swings and more experimental episodes these days.
Once you're a legacy show and you can make those changes, why not?
Yeah, I mean, before you guys came on, Adam and I were just chatting, and I was saying to him that like I feel like even with this episode we watched today, you can see them moving more and more towards storytelling as being like the primary thing that's going on, whereas the early seasons are so much about gags, and then they get like those little James L. Brooks moments in there where it's like the heartwarming thing at the end, right? But like by the time you even get here, and certainly in season 36, it's so much more about just like telling a story, and there's some jokes along the way and some touching stuff along the way, but it's kind of more like a Pixar movie or something like that than it is what you think of when you think of The Simpsons back in the day.
I think it's also unfair for fans to expect something to like remain the same. Like, I understand that sort of desire for things to be familiar, but I think of like even some of my favorite bands, right? Like, I admittedly, I am a Coldplay fan. Feel free to roast me as a result. But it's like, are there days where I wish they sounded like their first album still? Yeah, but at the same time, if they had just kept making that same sound for the last 20 years, you'd kind of get tired of it. You have to try new things. And I think as any creative person, I work in the creative arts, and like I know what it's like to sort of get tired of doing the same thing over and over again and trying, okay, I want to try something new. And not every time, it's not going to hit every single time, but eventually you're going to find, your lane of where you like. And what I've noticed of the episodes that I have dipped into in the more recent seasons is sort of, as Nate says, they're a bit more story focused. They're a little less jokey joke. But also we've talked on the show before how I feel like for me, a show like Bob's Burgers sort of fills the void of feeling like the early Simpsons seasons. But even that show has started to evolve away from that and gone in a different direction. And I think that's just the natural evolution of any form of television. Once you hit sort of like that 10-year run, you can't keep doing the same thing. It's just, it has to evolve. And again, as you guys have sort of said, like there's peaks and valleys to this, but we're 36 seasons in, like, and I do think that you're seeing it's maybe not what it once was, and it's evolved in a way that maybe certain fans don't love, and they wish it was more like it was before. But the thing we've also learned from talking to a lot of these writers and people who have grown up with the show and been with the show is that fans have been complaining about this show since like season 2. So it's like at some point you have to also just accept that you're never going to make everybody happy. So yeah, it's like some of the seasons or episodes that I love more than any other episodes were episodes that when they came out, fans were saying, this is garbage. This is the worst episode ever, as Comic Book Guy would say. So it's like at some point you kind of have to just step back and go, is it me? Am I the problem? It's the Skinner meme, right? Like, maybe it's not the show that's the problem. I'm the one who's out of touch. I don't know. So
yeah, there's a YouTuber and friend of the podcast, The Real Jims, who did an excellent video where, he did dig up like altnet reviews from like season 6 and like calling Lisa on Ice, a new low for the show, and I can't believe they've done this and all this stuff. And look back on that and was like, okay, I wonder if 30 years, people are going to be rushing in defense of the Lady Gaga episode. We'll see. I mean,
time will tell, and the show will still be on.
Yeah.
Most probably. But yeah, this episode in particular, this is an interesting one because, so season 30, we call the 30s, we nickname the Disney era, but in season 30, round 30, like, they're still under Fox. They're not full, like the deal's sort of
in between.
Yeah, it's in the works, but this is still very much the Fox era of the show. And this is one of our worst rated seasons overall so far. So I was a little bit nervous bringing this one to you today because I know, Adam, you're in Ontario, Canada, and Nate, you're in New Jersey, USA. Was worried this might spark some tensions or something.
Well, I'm Canadian originally.
Right.
Yes, so,
okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We both grew up in Ontario. So much like the writer of the episode, Tim Long, I moved down to the States for school and then just stuck around. So we can talk more about that, but yeah.
Well, and to that point, like, I think the thing that, and Nate, again, we were discussing this before you guys showed up. This is sort of a redo of the previous Canadian episode that they did. And I vastly prefer this one. And I think maybe part of it has to do with the time of when it was being made and the politics about that. But I actually I enjoyed the episode just as like a piece of entertainment, but also enjoyed it as sort of like a piece of Canadian references. Like it actually for the first time didn't feel like a bunch of Americans writing Canadian jokes. Like knowing that it was written by a Canadian, you're like, okay, this makes a lot more sense because these references actually feel true to who we are as a people. And like there's some deep cuts that Nate and I were joking about the S&C Lavalin affair, which we're like, we probably will have to explain that to most people.
Yep.
But
I looked at the Wikipedia and my eyes immediately glazed over. I'm not,
exactly.
But I need entertaining podcasters to explain that one to me.
But it was the first time where Canada didn't feel like the butt of the joke, but also more importantly, like sort of the American perspective of what Canada is, and just like all the tacky cliches. Like, yes, some of them, like there's a Mountie, but there's other references. Like, I mean, again, we're gonna get into the weeds here, but like Nate, what did the references to the Canadian food chains, like restaurant chains?
I wrote all of them down because the funny thing is, I recognized 3 out of 5 of them.
Right.
So I was like, why do I not recognize these other ones? It's because they're all West Coast things.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I was going to say. It's so funny that they're mostly like West Coast references, but we do actually have a couple Earls here in Toronto. But yeah, so it's just like, again, but that's like the level of detail that they're doing, that they're not just making Canadian references, they're making references to like the West Coast of Canada. So yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised by how it all played out.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, I was worried because, sometimes, especially with these Simpsons go-to episodes, there is a risk of offense. And
I was concerned about how that was all going to land, and then I saw Nate's Canadian Mountie coffee mug, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's fine.
To that point, how do you guys feel about the Australia episode? Because, like, that is, in my books, like a top 10 classic, but I have to, like, how does that play?
Oh, it's banned on Disney Plus here. It's like the China episode in China. Yeah, we're not allowed to watch.
Seriously?
No.
Yeah, I think John Howard banned it back in the night. No,
you guys have a pretty good sense of humor from what I can tell. So
yeah, absolutely. Like there were the type of right-wing radio guys back in the day that there's a bloody disgrace. They're making a mockery of the cane toad problem and all that sort of stuff. But
that's the thing they latch on to.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of people that would have a problem, like, did, and no one cares about them.
Or the ones who professionally have to have a problem because that's what they want people to get mad about. And I think the worst it gets from most people is like an eye roll, and that's about it. But yeah, amongst Simpsons fans, it's quite well remembered.
Yeah, no, we even have our own little subgenre of, like, Simpsons Australian memes where, like, for some reason, like, the Simpsons meme community in Australia latched onto Tobias as, like, the quintessential teenage pill-popping, drinking Australian. It's very weird and abstract, but...
I mean, I know from my experiences of spending time with Simpsons memes and Simpson meme accounts that, like, it seems like most of them are, for whatever reason, like, based in Australia.
The Commonwealth, I think. Like, the UK's got their share, Ireland has their share.
Yeah, Ireland's got an interesting Simpsons meme scene,
Interesting.
Yeah, so the other Simpsons, just before we get into the episode review proper, like, so the Simpsons, you would maybe cover this on your podcast, the Bart Wants What It Wants, that's a Simpsons Go to Canada one. I know they've touched on Canada. Has there been any other ones, or...?
The Bart Wants What It Wants is the big one that I remember, and it was really controversial in Canada at the time, like, news headlines, but, like, a lot of it was just, like, they kept advertising it like the Simpsons go to Canada, but then they're only there for like 5 minutes or something at the end of the episode. It's very surface level. So I feel like that was really the controversy more than anything.
Yeah, I remember when it was like going to air and Global, which was the network that sort of was the Canadian partner with Fox. Like, so it doesn't air on Fox in Canada, it airs on Global. They're the Canadian network that has the rights to it or whatever. They were really hyping it up, and like for weeks, like, the Simpsons are coming to Canada, the Simpsons are coming to Canada, and all these promos. And then, as Nate says, it's sort of like they get here and it's like, okay, well, they're barely in Canada, and half the Canadian references are just straight up wrong. Like, I remember like discussing with friends how they have that joke about Homer gets hit by a car and whatever, he has free healthcare, but beforehand there's like, they show the don't walk sign, and it's like written out like it is in the States, and that's like not a thing in Canada. And so it was just like one of these things of like, it's a small detail, but it just is like, well, if you had any Canadians involved, like, you would know this. And that's, I think, where like I want to give kudos to this episode, where it feels like at the very least, like, they kind of did their research, and it feels a little more authentic to the actual sort of like cultural differences between our two countries. So
it very much feels like an episode written by a Canadian who moved away and then like visits home, right? Because it's like, you know, having done that, it just, you see yourself and you see your culture so much more clearly in some ways, and like all those little things, like there's a lot of observational humor that's like about, you know, like asking explicitly for what you want is like something that I totally resonated with me, where I go home and I do that and my parents are kind of like weirded out by it, right? Or that, you know, just stuff like that felt totally on point. But yeah, I will say one thing about the healthcare: Americans don't get free healthcare in Canada. And actually, Canadians who move away don't get free healthcare in Canada.
Interesting.
Fun fact. You have to be a resident. So citizens, I'm like, I have to pay just like an American does if I go back and I get injured.
Wow. Because I was just going to say on the healthcare, because me and my dad and my brother and my nephew visited Canada 2-3 years ago now, and during that time, my nephew, that's when we discovered he's type 1 diabetic, because he had an absolute health crisis while he was over there. And he's great now, and he's an absolute numbers nerd, so like if anyone was going to get type 1 diabetes, like he's like weirdly the perfect person to have it. And anyway, like they just got treated like royalty, and like my brother, he was even like, God, I don't know if we would have gotten this greater healthcare back in Australia. And like, our healthcare is, pretty top notch as well. Like it's, especially compared to the States. And we're like, glad we decided to go skiing in some peaks and not in Utah like we were thinking about. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, that would have been a disaster. So our experience with the Canadian healthcare system was actually wonderful.
True to The Simpsons.
Yeah.
My only real complaint with this episode, and I would love to get Nate's read on this, because like as someone who's now living in America, is to me the Canadian accent that they use feels very like cliched, and it always reads to me more like a Minnesotan, like Fargo kind of voice.
Minnesotan.
And like, I don't
hey.
think we sound like that, but at the same time, like I hear this every day, so I don't know what I sound like. And whereas Nate, because he has mentioned that there are certain things that he hears now that he wouldn't have heard when he lived here, but I still feel like they lean a little heavy on the like oot and a boot sort of, you know, Canadian-y thing that we, at least where I live, is not as much sort of the vernacular, but
yeah, it's pretty exaggerated. I think like it does depend on where you are. I feel like if you go further north in Ontario, you start to get even more of that. But yeah, no, I think it's pretty exaggerated. It does sound more like Minnesota, like deep Minnesota.
That is one thing that I'll say that maybe people more have a problem with the Australian episode is that their accents are very actually South African. Like, gee, really cares. Well,
Yeah, it's awful.
okay. Like, I know we have a terrible accent and we sound awful, but we don't sound that bad. Come on, guys.
Then it's like a comedy show, and you expect characterization and exaggeration.
Like,
so it's like,
I'm not gonna. It's not a documentary, so I'm not like holding that against them. But
well, let's hook into the episode review proper. We just watched season 30, episode 21, Dole, Canada. Just side note, I'm a little annoyed that they didn't do Annoyed Grunt Canada, but
I also thought that.
First released in April of 2019, it was directed by Matthew Nastuck, written by Tim Long and Miranda Thompson. In this episode, Lisa gets injured in Niagara Falls, but falls on the Canadian side, and hearing Lisa bad-mouthing America and saying that she's politically oppressed and everything, the Mountie who rescued her takes it upon himself to keep her in Canada and keep her safe from her home country.
Give her asylum.
Yeah, and Marge works hard to try and bring her back and sneaks over the border, and then they very easily get back into America. Hey guys, what do we think? We'll start with you, BT. It's pronounced eh?
I know what I said.
It didn't resonate with you as a partial American and not at all Canadian?
I don't know what part was supposed to resonate with that, but no, not particularly. I was like, okay, this is fine.
Yeah. How about you guys?
Good night, everybody.
it's gonna be a short episode.
Yeah, I mean, like, everything I wrote down about this episode was my own personal experience of how it resonated with me in my own experience. It was like not a lot about like, man, that joke was great. Like, I didn't write down a lot of quotes. I didn't write down a lot of like sight gags and that kind of thing. And so
I mean, that's it. Even coming into this review now, it's been very interesting to hear how much that does resonate or how much it does check through the actual, Canadian experience, which feels like a weird sentence, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like observational humor, like there's a lot of good, like little observational humor that's kind of like a little chuckle, but not like a laugh out loud thing. And lots of like good details. Like, so this is a real deep cut, but there's the scene where Lisa is like looking across at the American side and like, Marge like encouraged her to like think about what she actually does like about America. And she's actually looking at the skyline of Detroit, Michigan, which means that they're actually in Windsor, Ontario. So it's like, it's actually like pretty specific, which is pretty cool. So all that stuff just makes you feel really seen if you're a Canadian, but I can definitely understand that it's maybe not that entertaining overall as for someone who doesn't have that connection,
Yeah, well, I mean, that is one thing we complain about with the Simpsons go-to episodes is, their sense of geography is all over the place. Like, probably none more worse than in the Africa episode where we're like, we're in all of Africa, let's just say. Yeah.
Right.
How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nate nailed it. It's less about how strong of a story or how strong the jokes were, as more I was just sort of like impressed by the references feeling authentic and feeling again like nailing sort of the geography and the stuff like that. And I think also too, obviously, like if you've been paying attention to the news, the relationship between Canada and America right now is a bit strained, and so to see an American series sort of like championing the merits of Canada was also just kind of like it kind of hit me in the feels in a way that I guess maybe I wasn't necessarily expecting. I wanted to ask Nate like how he felt about the Homer shitting on upstate New York by doing an entire song parody of New York, because Nate actually lives in and around that area.
Yeah, well, this goes back to like Tim Long like lived this. You can tell he lived this. So, like, he went to like Columbia University, I think, down in New York City. So like that he probably did that exact drive, and I do that exact drive every time I go and visit my parents. So it's like, it's actually really true to life. I will say, like, that part of New York State is rough. It's like we try to avoid stopping for lunch there, not because it's dangerous or anything, just because like there's nowhere to go that we like to go. And so it is kind of it's a pretty good dig, and I think it caused a lot of controversy at the time, but I think it hurt because it's kind of true.
Yeah.
How dare you accurately portray us?
But I was also just
exactly.
sort of like, I was also just sort of like, again, sort of the like the deep cuts, and like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but in the classroom there's a portrait of Gordie Howe, who was in like the early seasons, like the Woodrow character, because he was this like famous Canadian hockey player. And so it's just like the little things like that, again, if you're not super tuned in, and like that's always been the thing that I love on the Simpsons, is the sort of like what they used to refer to as VHS jokes, which, you know, now is a dated term, but like the blink and you miss it kind of stuff in the background. And I just like, I love the level of detail that they sort of did there. Even like right down to the fact that I noticed like the Mountie is a slightly different shade of yellow from the Americans, which like, I don't know what that's trying to say. Like, I don't know if it's meant as some sort of like commentary on anything, but again, it's just sort of like
something to show the difference.
Yeah, exactly. And also too, it's just a funny observation of just like Lisa going over the falls, which I was also like weirdly scared of as a child, because like I visited Niagara Falls on like as a tourist thing to do, and you would hear these stories of like kids who went over the falls, and so that was just something that I don't know what, like there was no chance of it actually happening to me, but I was weirdly afraid that would happen to me.
Well, and like on the American side, you go like right up next to the falls. Like where they are is like a totally real place in like that state park where you're like right next to the rushing water. Like it feels like you could go over the edge.
Yeah, well, because I was going to ask if you guys had been to Niagara Falls, and if that also spoke to your experience, and if the binoculars are powerful on a molecular level as well. And
Niagara Falls, at least in Canada, I mean, because we don't have a lot of sort of touristy destinations like the States, but Niagara Falls is sort of like the quintessential crappy tourist destination, because it's
totally.
And I've done it many times, including as an adult with my wife. Like for one of our anniversaries, we were just like, let's go to Niagara Falls on a whim. And there's like a shitty wax museum that, funnily enough, has a Simpsons section where you can like with like the whole family sitting at the TV, but like the clothes are literally falling apart. They're so dilapidated. This place is so old. It's the kind of wax museum where if you like, my wife and I had this game where we would cover up the name of because you actually need a plaque to know who these people are. So I would like cover it up and be like, okay, guess who this is? And she would just be, I have no idea. And I'd be like, it's Meryl Streep. And you're like, no, it's definitely not Meryl Streep.
That almost sounds way more fun than like a legit great Madame Tussauds museum,
well,
you know?
To this day, it's one of our favorite memories, is this shitty wax museum. But like, that's the caliber of like touristy stuff that they have there. Like, it's just like, it's all garbage. Like, and the restaurants are all like, it's Boston pizza and like Applebee's and just like not food you'd want to really eat, but like it's all more expensive than it would be anywhere else in the province. But it is a place that families go because it's just like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? Like,
it's iconic, and
exactly, it's iconic, and again, in the old days, it was also not uncommon that you would cross the border into the American side and you'd do some shopping and you'd come back. And of course, now I don't know that is necessarily as easy as it once was. But
no day trips. I mean, so it's kind of like a little bit of like Las Vegas, except that without the it's like all of the other Nevada cities that are also have gambling. It's more like that. It's like Reno, where it's like you can go to a casino there, but it's like a second-rate casino, and there's all these like weird tourist things there, and that's all on the Canadian side. So on the American side, there's another city. Both of them are called Niagara Falls. There's Niagara Falls, Ontario, and Niagara Falls, New York.
Interesting.
Niagara Falls, New York is like super impoverished and had like, there was like this horrible chemical accident there called the Love Canal. Look it up. It's crazy.
I've heard of that. Yeah,
that's the Niagara Falls, New York. So it's like super impoverished. In this episode, they're on the American side, and the benefit of the American side is that you can actually get up close to the falls. The Canadian side doesn't really have that area, but you can kind of like see the falls from a distance. So anyway, that's a little a little deep dive into what that's like.
I think I'd prefer the safer side of it. You know, they're falls. You know, they're big enough. I don't think you need to get that close to them.
You get more of a picturesque view from our side. Like there's literally a place called Falls View Casino because that's what you get to see. And certainly, like at night, they light them up, and then in the wintertime, it's actually coolest in the winter because like it sort of freezes a little bit, but there's still. The falls are still falling, so it's like this mixture of like motion and like frozen water and lights and everything. And it's borderline beautiful. I don't want to go right out and say like, you know, it's not like a wonder of the world situation. Yeah, but
I think it is a wonder of the world. It's a natural wonder of the world.
Yes, I do think it is technically one of the natural wonders of the world. But it is very much like a kind of like a dumpy tourist destination now. But.
Yeah, and also like once you've seen it for 5 minutes, you're kind of done, and then there's not much else to do. That was a very good piece of observational humor.
Yeah, it's funny because between this and The Office, that's all the impression I've got of Niagara Falls. It's this rundown, kitschy tourist sort of place. But we'll hook into the questionnaire. BT, we'll start with you. For better or worse, do you have a standout moment from this episode?
Look, I originally wrote down nothing. Like nothing really.
Wow.
Piqued my interest or drove my hatred. But then we mentioned that kind of, because Lisa and Marge are stuck up in Canada, that they kind of Skype back, Skype kids, ask your parents back home. And there's this, she's like, oh, it looks like you're doing pretty well without us. And then it cuts out and there's, yellow tape of Skype zone in a V around the couch where all the filth is everywhere else. I got a pretty good laugh out of that one. I thought that was good.
Oh, yeah, because that is just so relatable for us doing so many of these podcasts over video chat. And yeah, not that my office is looking particularly nice right now, but yeah, outside of frame, it's a disaster zone. But yep. Oh,
there you go.
Nate's absolutely
Nate, that makes me feel so much better seeing that. Nate and I have been doing
a bathroom renovation, so we literally have just taken all of the shelves and everything from the bathroom and dumped it on the floor so that the contractors can get in. So it's particularly bad.
That's reassuring. That's much more reassuring.
My Skype view right now.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing because my Skype view avoids all the interesting shit, which is on this bookcase to my right. But it's just the way the layout of the room ended up going.
Yeah, same here. My Simpsons shrine is out of frame where I've got all my fucked Simpsons merchandise. But
frankly, I'm happy not to look at fucked robotic Homer. So.
Well, and see, on the other hand, I put this shelf up recently, which holds my all the Criterion Collection movies that I own. Which again, cool. On brand for our show. Thinking, that'll make for like a really nice backdrop, but it always gets cropped out of my video, and so I'm like, well, so much for that. But I needed the shelf space downstairs, so I was like, okay, I'll move these all upstairs. And they look nice to me, but...
And this is a strictly audio podcast, so this is all lost on anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic, yep. Pretend we're showing and not showing amazing things.
How about you, Nate? For better or worse, what's a standout moment from this one?
I think the SNC Lavalin call-out was my favorite, just because it's such a deep-cut Canadian reference that... probably no one in America even heard about in the news at the time.
No, definitely.
But it was like a huge deal in Canada. It was a massive, massive deal at the time. It was like driving the whole political conversation at the time, basically. And now is completely forgotten because everyone's just moved on to other things. Yeah. But I just love that even got mentioned.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was serious enough for Justin Trudeau to run away on his hands in this one.
Yeah, that was a weird cameo.
Yeah.
Well, not Justin Trudeau, by the way. Guest star of this episode, Lucas Meyer, who is a journalist / impressionist that they were.
Okay.
Sorry, go.
I was just curious if it was or wasn't, just because we know Tony Blair did actually show up in that episode. And ever since then...
been on brand for Trudeau
to
show up.
It's almost odd that it wasn't. Like, it's almost as if they just didn't bother to ask, because I think
like he was going to, and then he saw they were going to bring up that SVC
or that, maybe,
but... VCR controversy.
Well, no, apparently they did reach out a couple of times, and Tim Long tried to reach out to him personally, but he just said no. I'm a Prime Minister of Canada. I've got more important things to do.
Fair honestly, enough, you know what? Fair enough. Like, good on him, I guess.
It's the response you hope you get, which is why it's always weird when they're like, "Oh no, I'll be." And I mean, good, but shouldn't you be busy?
Yeah, well, and I mean, they got Tony Blair, and that was very bootlicky, and it was good that they got our Prime Minister Andy and they did record him from the pool donut in his lake. But is there a broad strokes summary of this scandal that you can give us just to fill in that gap in our dumb Australian lack of Canadian knowledge?
When they mentioned it, I looked it up because I also had to refresh myself. But basically, Justin Trudeau, intervened in an investigation of a corporation. And this corporation has been investigated multiple times for corruption. And Trudeau basically was like, well, maybe we could find another solution. And then basically, I think one of the people in the government like blew the whistle and was like, wow, that was totally unethical. And then they investigated it and were like, yeah, that was unethical. And in the Wikipedia, the funny part was the way they summarized what happened was the Conflict of Interest Act apparently has no consequences listed for violating it. So nothing happened.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you did bad.
Yep, pretty much.
You know that now. You think about what you've done.
That's pretty much how that scandal ended, was like, yep, well, he did indeed do the thing that we all thought he did, and I guess there's nothing we can do about it. And
yeah, maybe back in the day that was, that's pretty normal now for most high-powered people. It's like, we found out you did something wrong.
That seemed quaint.
In the grand scheme of scandals, political scandals. I mean, but that is not to toot our own horn, but like in the Canadian political scandals tend to be like that. Like there was another one with Justin Trudeau of like, there was this foundation, the Me to We company, and like he was on the board, and then like they got some government contracts and they're like, you can't do that. And he's like, oh, okay, sorry. And everyone's like, okay, you've learned your lesson. Like, but again, it's like, okay, so you gave a not-for-profit some government contracts. Like it really not that bad of a thing compared to what some other countries are maybe, alleged to have done.
But an interesting thing to bring up in the same episode that they do, where Homer says, how can they afford free healthcare and also give massive tax breaks to corporations who really need them so badly?
Very true. Yeah, he managed to do both. Justin Trudeau threaded the needle.
Yeah, exactly. And I
credit where it's due.
Another moment I did love in this was when Lisa was almost sticking it to a certain political leader that is not Justin Trudeau, who shall remain nameless. And Homer kept sort of trying to stop, or Homer or Marge, I can't remember who, is like, trying to stop her, interrupt her every single time. Which again, it's just like, it's a nice reminder of where the Simpsons sit politically. So
that's why this episode like becomes an interesting time capsule for me personally, like because of like where it is in time and like pre-COVID and it's still at the end of that first run of that presidency. There's just interesting things to pick out from it where it totally exists in the year 2019 like that. Adam, how about you? Is there a standout moment from this episode for better or worse?
Again, just one of these like weird deep cut, or maybe not deep cut references, but like I appreciated when they sort of said, they talked about the negative things about Canada and sort of like, we treat our land terribly too, and we treat our Indigenous people terribly too. And then there's like a run of like making fun of Newfies, which is this weird, again, if you're not Canadian, you're not going to understand this, but it's like...
I write that down as like, what the hell is a Newfie?
So, it's Newfoundlanders, they're on the East Coast, and they're, where are they? Like, are they descended from Scotland?
I think Ireland.
Yeah, like Scotland and Ireland, and it's just sort of this, it was a thing when we were kids of like, and I don't think it's really as much of a thing anymore, but it was like, there were these stupid Newfie jokes, and, it's the equivalent of like, I know that back in my parents' day, it was like Polack jokes, or like, you just sort of, you pick a race of white people that you can insult and it's okay. And so it was like in Canada, it's Newfies. And then, but the thing that was like so bizarre was the sort of tangent where Canadian Ralph does this Islander Forever thing. And I was like, this is clearly a reference to something, and I don't know what it is, but I probably should. And it's so long that I'm like, what, like, did they just have to fill some time? Or, but it's like, it's one of those classic Simpsons moments of like, I don't really know what's going on here, and I'm not even sure that it's funny, but it's clearly for someone, and I appreciate that they at least did that.
a 1%er, as they call it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's 1% of the audience that's going to get it, and they're going to love it.
Well, yeah, because I don't know the song or what they're referencing, but yeah, they reached out to musician Bruce Moss to use his song The Islander for this, and he rejected them because he read the lyrics and said, yeah, you're morally bankrupt, and made a public statement about it and claimed, yeah, they offered him $20,000 and he rejected it because it was so offensive. And yeah, to the point where I'm like, can I even say the word newfie? Is this like a loaded term for like, are we going to
kind of, it's like on the fence, I'd say, but like,
Okay.
It's probably like, again, in today's day and age, like you probably, I would imagine that newfie jokes would be frowned upon, or like at least less commonplace than they were in the like 90s, which is what makes this joke feel especially weird, because it's like I would expect that in that like original Canada episode, like
it's kind
that
of a dated reference.
But at the same time, like it's one of those moments where it's like, okay, again, it feels like this is clearly being written by a Canadian, because only they would know to make that kind of a reference.
Well, it does remind me of one of the very last references in this episode is to the Beachcombers.
Yes.
Adam, did that mean anything to you? Because I had to look up what the hell it was.
No, so I do know what again, the other thing to know about me is that I know a lot about pop culture from way, way, way before my time. And the Beachcombers was a show on CBC, the like Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, our like national our equivalent of BBC, or I guess your guys' ABC. I think is ABC like nationally funded over there? Yeah, so it's our equivalent of that. And Beachcombers was like this long running TV series that like I actually like I think my mom worked on, or like someone in my life worked on. So like I did know the reference, but it's like, yeah, again, it's like a show that was popular in the 60s and 70s, and nobody
and like ended in like 1990 or something like that. So
exactly.
when this is airing, that's like a super old reference, even for Canadians. And I feel like the sort of newfie joke thing was also sort of in that vein of maybe it's like more like Tim Long's childhood and less like Canada Now.
Very much so. Or maybe it's like also meant to be this sort of like Canada is stuck in the past, sort of this idealized 90s, or like in that case, like 60s era of what the nation was. But yeah, it's got to be one of the like deepest cuts reference on the show.
If it wasn't deep enough, it came about because that kid in the class was pushing for them to do a play of the Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz. Not a thing I'd ever heard of either.
There's a 1974 movie starring Richard Dreyfuss, which I think I maybe watched in school at some point.
Oh shit, Randy Quaid's in it as well.
yeah, it's pretty good as I recall.
All right.
Okay,
it's no Handmaid's Tale. Let's put it that way, though.
Yeah.
Even I thought that was a bit like making the kids do a Handmaid's Tale play.
Child-friendly version.
A child-friendly version of a Handmaid's Tale.
How bizarre!
Look, we don't have a lot of culture to pull from, guys. Or at least like culture that cross. I mean, that's sort of the other long-standing Canadian joke is like growing up when you meet Americans. It's like you talk about the famous Canadians who left Canada to go become famous in America. Like you'd be like, oh, did you know Jim Carrey's Canadian?
Okay. Yeah. I have like a red string,
here we go.
Theory here about
this
exact thing.
All
so
right.
the scene where Marge is trying to sneak back into Canada?
Yes.
Yep.
Right. And there's like a music cue that's super distinctive, not very Simpsons-y. I think it's a 24 reference.
Yeah.
And that TV show stars Kiefer Sutherland, a Canadian. I think that's the joke, but might be just a bit of a conspiracy theory.
Wow.
Look, I mean, it checks that she's running across the bridge, checking all these license plates that are weirdly all filthy, and I'm confused what the joke is. And then she sees a Springfield one, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a bit lost on that, but I'll say that's actually a standout moment for me because this does actually speak to one of my experiences going over to Canada because, like I mentioned before, went to Sun Peaks, did a lot of skiing, but before that, me and my family would go to Whistler in British Columbia quite a bit, and absolutely loved that, but it has also become an overrun touristy sort of spot and not as fun to ski there anymore. But one time we went there, I don't remember what the public holiday was, but there was an American public holiday, and we discovered what it's like when a bunch of Americans come over the border to drink beer like Squeaky Voice Teen and his friends were doing. because we're having a nice family holiday in Canada and pleasant experiences chatting to randoms at the bars and pubs and whatever, and then all of a sudden the influx of American teenagers because the legal drinking age is 18, 19 in Canada.
It's 19
in Ontario, 18 in Quebec.
Which is the other sort of classic thing of Nate and my sort of childhood is like, in Canada, you have the Americans coming to drink at 19, but in Quebec, you have the Ontarians coming to drink at 18.
Right, exactly.
So, it's just all this, moving puzzles of, underage drinking. And, So, that was an awful weekend where we just ended up staying inside and, not even hitting up the ski fields because, it was just a bunch of drunken American teenagers.
That does sound awful.
Just, absolutely overcrowding everywhere. We were just so surprised. It was just such a giant influx of people coming in. But no, it was a funny detail that, they had squeaky voice teen people. Don't tell anyone. We're going over the border to drink beer. And everyone's like, we know.
Yeah. I will say that was probably a down, to Nate's point about the music, that was probably one of the low points for me was in the aforementioned Upstate New York song. Yeah. How, shitty the orchestrations were. It sounded like crappy MIDI music where I was like, okay, 20 years earlier, you would have had a full on, the orchestra at Fox Studios would have recorded this and it would have sounded amazing. And this just sounds like some sort of cheap novelty parody on YouTube.
Yeah, they've definitely cut the music budget a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like the music writing too, I like the lyrics. That's the thing. In that sequence, I like the lyrics, I like the visuals, but even the melody feels, it's just not, it doesn't have that Alf Clausen, the sound alike is so good that it displaces the original in your head. Yeah. Right? And okay, so the song Capital City, also a parody of New York, New York. And that song sounds great and is good enough to be its own song, And that's the thing is you can just put them right up next to each other and that one just as a song doesn't really hold up. It feels like karaoke.
Well, on our show, when we did the episode on, is it On the Town, Nate? Is that the name of the movie?
Yeah.
Yes. When we did the episode about On the Town and Springfield, it's a hell of a town. I said, I was like, I think I like the Simpsons song more than the song from the hit musical. It's just, and that's to Nate's point. Sometimes their musical parodies sort of just become, they're just that much better. And this, in this case, it really does. Like I said, it feels like someone got a MIDI track version of New York, New York, and just wrote some parody lyrics and had Homer sing them, which was kind of a bummer. Cause it's I know they can do so much better. And it's just, but.
Well, and it's weird as well, because by this time, because I think they fired Alf Clausen in season 28 or something. So they're firmly in Hans Zimmer's company by this point. And you would have thought the standard would have increased, but it really didn't. And this is a sort of a common thing where, it feels like we're using MIDI demo tracks.
I think that's the thing. Even if you're getting Hans Zimmer's company to do it, if you're only paying them $20, they're not giving you A material.
No, exactly. I mean, and you can get good, synthesized orchestrations. I know from experience, but again, you have to take the time and effort to make them sound authentic. And they're just, as you say, if you're not going to put the money there, why would they bother? And I think it's to the show's detriment because the music of The Simpsons is so intrinsically linked. I mean, what other animated series or even television, live action television series has multiple soundtracks of original songs? The Simpsons does.
At the very least, you could point to something like, I don't know, High School Musical or something, but music is the point in that show. I can't think of a single other show where the music is secondary and yet you still release successful albums.
Multiple successful albums. So it's to not see the value there and it's especially funny when you think about the fact that now it's owned by Disney and what is Disney best known for? It's animated musicals. Maybe we should put a little more money back into that budget, but I don't know what it was costing. And obviously now Alf Clausen has unfortunately passed away. So even if they put the money back in there, the guy who worked his magic is no longer with us. But yeah, it was one of those, I was surprised by how I wasn't distracted by the high definition animation, and I wasn't distracted by the age of the voices. But as soon as that music cue hit, I was like, ooh, this is like we're definitely in like late seasons as a result of how bad this sounds.
Yeah, not for real. And like, yeah, you're mentioning classic Simpsons and orchestrations. That is one thing, one change I did have to make to Starring Springfield early on after I discovered your guys' podcast is, yeah, I also picked out that Simpsons big band Las Vegas version for my theme. Is like, nah, these guys called dibs on it. But so, yeah, I pivoted.
It's a good track.
a great track, great for podcasts, but you guys got there first, so we switched it up and used the Springfield. It's a hell of a town. I didn't even realize that was a reference to a thing, so there we go.
There you go, yeah.
All right. How was the wackiness in this episode? You know, on the Simpsons Index, we sort of think that the classic eras were defined by, like, how well they balanced wackiness and heart. So just, yeah, starting out, how was the wacky moments in this episode? How did they use the cartoony space?
I mean, I've got a couple. Lisa flying in that little bouncy ball thing is up there on the whack. She also then wakes up with a maple syrup IV.
I did like that.
That was one of those jokes where I'm like, oh, is that a bit too, let's say an A joke? Like, is that too obvious for Canada? Like, yeah, but
yeah, a little
I
cheap,
laughed.
but kind of funny.
Actually, a background joke I did notice in the classroom as well was the poutine pyramid, and I actually think that was off.
That.
Because it went from like top to bottom, it went gravy, fries, curds, and surely fries is the one at the bottom, right? Like,
I saw that too, but I thought about it, and I think it's like, you know, if you're constructing poutine, the fries are on the bottom, then the curds, then the gravy. But I think what the diagram is telling us is proportionately there should be more curds than fries.
that
Which
sounds
seems
rough.
also insane, but I think that's what they're saying.
Right in Canada, let us know.
One of my favorite restaurants in Whistler was like a bar that exclusively served different kinds of poutine, and it,
love it.
Not enough time in a day, not enough room in my stomach, you know. Like that.
I was also going to mention that you mentioned the classroom. You mean the one at Alanis Morissette Elementary?
Oh, was it?
Indeed.
Oh, I missed that. That's good.
Again,
we even get a little Alanis Morissette music when they do the establishing shot as well.
But again, another classic, like, hey, remember, she's Canadian. Like, it's we're really self-conscious about this.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a similar thing. I guess our Canada is New Zealand. So we also have that thing of like, we claim people from there. Like, no, they're Australian.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Russell Crowe and Neil Finn and all the rest, yeah. Yeah, were there any other cartoony moments that stood out to you guys?
The Court of Just Ice.
Yeah.
I got a cheeky laugh out of that one. I almost hate myself of how much I enjoyed that pun.
I like the mixed martial arts megachurch
Yes.
at the very end. That was a good one.
I liked Satchmo coming to life, and then the like he wants to go to Canada because the weed is legal, which again, and I thought it was a very good impression of Louis Armstrong as well. So
yeah, I think the line I liked out of that was, you know, I'm Louis Armstrong and I'm really tired of appearing in your visions.
Yeah.
The idea that Lisa would do this a lot.
Yeah, just the overall mix of her imaginary like cadre of Americans that are convincing her to go back was pretty funny. Just, you know, like, I don't even remember who all was there. Like Watson, the computer from Jeopardy.
Seabiscuit, Aretha Franklin,
Judy Blume, who's one of the guest stars for this episode.
Cameo, yeah, exactly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Abe Lincoln, of course.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty funny. It was just like such a weird mix of people. Like, if you're thinking about America, those are the first things that she thinks of. And Dumbo, the elephant, is also...
Dumbo the elephant.
This is weird.
And I guess for Lisa's age at this time, she might have been thinking of the Tim Burton one, which is not very good.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Look, they're not owned by Disney yet.
No, not yet. But speaking of Judy Blume and just the guest stars for this episode, like, I'm not sure about the guy who did the Trudeau impression, but yeah. So Judy Blume playing herself, and also Aquafina was playing the doctor in the hospital. So these aren't Canadians, like, right?
Okay, so this is the thing. Again, not to do the classic, like, we have Canadians, but like, okay, Sandra Oh is right there. Like, she's...
Yeah.
If you want to have an Asian actor, you could get one of the greatest. And like, I guess she doesn't have a very distinct voice like Aquafina, but like Aquafina famously has like a Bronx accent. Like, there's nothing Canadian about her.
Like, the second she came on, I just wrote down, oh, hi, guest voice.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because it's just one of those very obvious, hey, this is someone.
Yeah. but for all the subtle and hidden references, like, and yeah, you mentioned like there's plenty of Canadians. It makes me wonder, like, were they just that far down the list and Aquafina was available, or were they shooting for
Well,
her
she
from the
apparently
start?
was, from what I read, she was on another episode earlier in the season. So I think it was like, let's just get her to record a couple extra lines for this episode kind of thing, which I get the impression that maybe that happens a little bit more now. The stuff is a little less tailored to the special guest stars like it was in the early days. But once I read that, I was like, okay, I guess that makes a little more sense as to why she was included. But at the same time, it's like, it's such a minor role and you don't really need a guest voice. Like,
because there's nothing distinctive about the character at all.
Exactly. Like, just keep it with Judy Blume and that would have been enough. Like, but
well, yeah, Judy Blume at least makes sense in the context, and even though it's a very weird, like, what the hell are you doing in Springfield or in this show sort of moment, it's like, well, yeah, fair enough. Lisa would be a fan of her work, but this is actually part of the episode that really didn't work for me. Like, I felt like they really rushed to Lisa wanting to go back home, and just it was very. Because the episode feels short as well. We get the extended intro, we get the full outro credits, because,
the whole song.
Yeah, because usually these days in the 30s, it's like they do a really truncated like intro and then like they might even have an extra scene over the credits. This one was all within the episode. And so, yeah, it's like they really did have time to sort of flesh out a bigger and better ending. And I just sort of felt this was too convenient.
Yeah, I was going to segue that into like the heart moment that I feel is really lacking because, you know, Lisa sees all these things that she loves about America and decides, oh, I will go back. But there's a better line to kind of play of, yes, it's not perfect, but it's my home and it's not going to get better unless people do something about it.
Unless she becomes president.
Yeah, that she would want to
I think
fight
she
for
says
that.
it. She says it out loud, but it doesn't come from anything or go anywhere, right?
Yeah. And then that could have been, you know, part of her argument with Marge. Like, oh, yeah, what am I going back for? That nuclear plant that spills so much thick fog that it comes down like snow, and be like, well, they stopped doing that because of you. You held all those protests. And like an example of, you know, there's that post going around at the moment where, love this country or leave it, you know, and then someone's like, oh, yeah, sure. So if your car breaks down, just abandon it. If your house smells bad, leave. Don't ever try to fix anything. That's what true patriotism is. Yeah, so the idea that Lisa would want to be one of those people who is going to be instrumental in making the world a better place is not going to run from a place of problem.
Yeah, so that is a very good segue into, the heart. So how did the heart land with you guys?
Everything I just said.
Yeah, I guess it's like, ultimately, I'm inclined to agree. Like, they didn't really earn their, you know, to have your cake and eat it too. They didn't earn their cake. Like, it really does feel like Lisa probably would want to stay in Canada, and like the ultimate compelling reason for her to come back wasn't delivered well enough to justify it. I mean, again, we have to wrap everything up and we're running out of time or whatever. Like, I understand that she was never going to stick around. And again, you know, some of the best moments on this show are the moments between Lisa and her parents. Usually it's Lisa and Homer, but sometimes it's Lisa and Marge. And, you know, we don't really get that. Like, there's even Marge trying to like get Lisa back. It doesn't feel, you don't get that sort of moment of like, she's trying to save her daughter kind of thing. Like, because Lisa's not really in peril. Like, she's living it up in Canada. So I don't know. The heart part of it kind of felt the most forced and the least
there's a
earned.
bit as well that I want to really highlight as being a big integrity break where Marge is trying to convince Lisa to go, and Lisa's like, no, I like it here. And Marge just goes, listen, you little traitor, you're coming home. And it's like, that does not sound like Marge at all.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting stance for Marge to take because, like, we have seen that side of her as well, like with, you know, the whole, like, Springfield, Shelbyville thing, and she does have, like, town pride and town
you're drinking
loyalty.
Springfield.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, this makes sense for Marge's character. Yeah, it was a little heavy, like a bit Homer, like
or just of course you're coming home because that's what we do, not, you know, I care about the welfare of my child, or even if you're doing better out there, you belong with your family.
I almost would have preferred there to be more of a meta joke of like, you can't stay here, you know, like referencing the fact that it is a TV show and like they need to get back to regular continuity. Like, that feels like something that maybe like in the Oakley and Weinstein years they would have done something more to that effect of like,
can't stay here, we don't have the budget for 2 locations.
Or something, you know, something to that effect of like, you know, we need to be home by, you know, with the last 30 seconds or what. I don't know. It didn't feel as earned, and especially her sort of denouement of like, yeah, I'm gonna come back, also just felt like, whoa, that was a very fast 180 because Satchmo made fun of you. Like, what? Like,
it doesn't really make any sense because all of the things she thinks of are these like cultural objects that like you can access in Canada.
Yeah, because a lot of the people were already dead.
Right. Yeah. Like it's like all of these like, or many of these like, people who have passed on that like you can watch those shows in Canada. You can watch those movies, listen to that music, like all that stuff. So if that's what's like bringing you back to America, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No. And this also we're segueing between the questions very nicely. Did it feel like an episode of The Simpsons? How's the integrity of this one? Does this remind us of the classic era, or do we think this is a very far-off evolution of the show we know and love?
I mean, somewhere in between the two. It's close-ish, but yeah, it's got that very slapped-together moral ending that justifies the end, and then you get there, and it's whatever.
Yeah.
I think you nailed like just the description of this as The Simpsons go-to episode. It's totally within the, I think, within the like tradition of those types of episodes that I feel like you get more and more starting in like season 9 through 13 in the seasons that we look at a lot. And it feels a lot like that, where they're kind of cheap episodes, right? In terms of like the emotionality and all of that. They're just kind of a vehicle because like they need to fill time.
Yeah.
And those can kind of feel a little empty at times, but this one does, as we were talking about, like, I think the observations about the place they go to in this one, at least, are maybe a step above some of those other ones.
Yeah, I was going to say, it has that feeling of like a season 12, 13, like a teens era where, you can't really do clip shows anymore, but if you need to have like a quick and easy episode, it's like you said, a Simpsons go-to, maybe this is a quick and easy way we can just do some observational humor. And look, I always think of like the Japan episode, which just feels like really the excuse for them to go to Japan is pretty thin, and then the observations are pretty thin. Like the whole episode doesn't really justify its own existence. And that to me, like, again, I don't know what the rest of season 30 is like and whether or not this is, on the better side of those episodes or on the worse side, but certainly it doesn't have the feel of a classic Simpsons episode, but like it's also not one where I was like patiently waiting for it to end. Like I did enjoy myself.
Yeah, same here. Like, for me anyway, as far as, like, Simpsons go-to episodes, we have this concept as well of, like, when it feels like The Simpsons are doing, like, whiteboard writing where they'll, like, put a name of the
Canada
at the top. As many references, like this, at least, like it is that, but it's also like there is a cohesive story running throughout it as well. And like, in this same season, Bart goes to Korea to play League of Legends, and like that was a lot.
Oh, jeez.
I should specify South Korea. And those, like you said, those references felt a lot more thin and not from a place of experience either. It's just like, very weak observations and I mean, kind of similar to the other Canadian episode, just they're there for an act and it was very inconsequential. Whereas this one, like, it feels baked into the story, and it does feel like it does come from a place of experience, which is, important for these go-to episodes to not just feel like a checklist of places to go and think, like, because, like, the Island episode as well, where they went to, Ireland, that really felt like that, even though they had a good story going for it. But yes or no, would you watch this episode again?
If someone wants to explain some of the more Canadianisms, or if I like visit Canada, I'm like, oh, now I get it. Then, but that's very highly contextual.
Yeah, actually, if you remember the old Seinfeld DVDs where they had like one subtitle track that was just trivia, like I'd watch it again with that.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see this one with a commentary track maybe, but no, I think I would I would much rather watch the Simpsons Go to Australia episode than this one, because like I adore that episode. I think it's so funny.
Gee willikers.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think that is an example of them again using. Yes, they're going someplace international, but there's story reasons for it, and it all feels kind of justified. And then like, again, the ending doesn't feel rushed or inauthentic. Like, that's sort of the best example of doing this. Yeah, whereas this is maybe more, as I said, more in line with, like, the episode where they go to Japan or whatever. But the observational humor as a Canadian was at least funny, which, that I guess when you're talking about a comedy show, like that's at least the most important part is it has to at least be funny. But again, I now know that like to non-Canadians, it maybe doesn't play as well, if at all.
Yeah. I think I would watch in the context of showing it to someone. And I actually could imagine scenarios where I would show this to someone.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly who.
It would be interesting. No, but I was going to say, Nate, it would be interesting to show it to your wife because, like, she is American, but went to university in Canada. That's how we all met.
Right.
And then moved back home. So, like, she would be familiar with sort of the Canadian isms, but as an outsider. So to get her perspective on it and whether or not that humor... Like, would she find it funny because she gets the reference, or is it only funny if you're actually from Canada, not just knowing the reference, but like living that reference? So I think like that could be a very interesting viewing experience.
Yeah.
Well, I think that would be very interesting, especially knowing that. So like we've been talking about Tim Long. I think he wrote this with his wife.
Yeah, Miranda
actually
Thompson's
as well.
wife,
and I'm not sure if she's Canadian originally or if she's American, but. I think it would be really interesting to hear what she has to say about it. I think she'd probably give me knowing looks when they're talking about like, oh, you're asking for what you want. That's weird. We don't like that.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, Elliot, did you say Tim Long's wife was Miranda Thompson?
Yep.
That's funny.
Why is that?
Hello, Miranda Thompson.
Oh. I think she's talking to you. But what would we like to change, BT? How would you like to change this episode to improve it and raise it from an eh to an A?
Nice.
It was okay.
I would just want to see a bit more of a justification of why Lisa wants to leave and a bit more of a justification of why, well, just get the mood of why Marge wants her back so much right. Like, I feel like she really pushes this no, America's great kind of line instead of it being it's not perfect, but this is where you belong and you belong with your family kind of thing. And then maybe a bit more drama of her, her getting into the country and them getting out, because that's really where some of the more, action drama kind of comes from on this. They both just kind of happen. There's not a whole lot to either of them, which, you can play that in the sense of maybe getting in was super easy, but getting out super hard, or just flip that for the comedy's sake. But in both instances, it's not much.
Yeah. How about you, Nate? What would you like to change about this one?
I think BT nailed it. I think it's about the character integrity, right?
Yeah.
Of just like Lisa should be the moral center. She's always the moral center, right? And so the feeling of like she wants to return to the US because she wants to like be part of the solution. Like that feels super Lisa, and they didn't really lean into that in the ending, and I feel like that definitely was a missed opportunity. So that's probably the biggest thing that I would want to see changed.
How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I think he nailed it. So I will just say, I mean, I guess maybe just more Simpsons side characters. Like that's the only downside of these Simpsons go-to episodes is you get stuck with the family. And I love the family, but 30 seasons in, like the family have kind of done everything. And so when there's no Lenny or there's no Mo and like those,
I've got a pitch.
Nate's okay. Here we go.
My pitch is we find out that one of the like longtime Springfieldians is secretly Canadian.
There you go.
Yeah,
exactly.
Visiting family in Canada.
Yeah, it's like groundskeeper Willie, and he's like, "You think this accent is real?"
Yeah, there you go. Or if nothing else, you can always win me over by having Sideshow Bob show up because I love a Sideshow Bob episode. So
he does show up. He shows up in the couch gag.
Yes, exactly. He's in the couch. I will say I love the couch, even though it was very long. I did really enjoy the couch gag, and again the sort of observational humor of how sitcoms have changed over the years. But
it was very WandaVision.
Yes, very much so.
True. It's interesting because, like, this is actually a couch gag that they don't often do repeated couch gags in the new era, but this is one that they've used maybe 4 times now.
Yeah, it's like the new version of the circus intro where
Fully.
they have a bit
if
more
they need
time.
to kill some time.
Yeah, because this one's sprung up in the early 20s or something like that. No,
Yeah.
I was surprised and delighted to see it come back again because
it's much like that circus one. It is a bit longer, so okay, the episode ran short, but it's fairly smooth and all the part you get what they're going for. So
yeah. And that leads into what I'd change is really the beginning and the end because you had time to work with. And it feels like this was like a pretty competent story that it fell apart at the end for me, like is extra disappointing. But it also kind of started with a bit of inefficiency where they are at Mount Splashmore and it starts with the callback to will you take us to Mount Splashmore, take us to, and
that was weird. because like this whole thing kicks off because Homer's credit card points have finally hit it for a point where he can go to like a reasonably priced hotel. They could be home and do that. That's fine. You don't have to be at Mount Splashmore.
Right.
Well, yeah, my quick pitch for that was just the Simpsons are all doing different things and Homer's like rushing to grab them and pile them into the car and just shouting points.
That's a good call. Because then you could just have little snippets
Yeah.
of like weird stuff that they're all doing. Like Bart's in the middle of a prank. And
Yeah.
You know
that's a good one.
How
I
about
like that.
we take the traditional intro, but everyone's getting interrupted by Homer being like, points?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
there you
whole
go.
going through
You know-
Springfield thing. Yeah, he grabs Bart while he's on the skateboard and pulls Lisa out of
Lisa
the
out of
music
band
class.
camp
Yeah.
and yanks Marge out of the line in when she's at the grocery store, that kind of thing.
Because that's the other weird thing with the intro is they do the variation where Lisa's playing a different instrument and she's playing the harp and it just kind of sounds like shit in this one. Like, we've seen a lot of great variations where she's like playing the trumpet, or one time she had a cello and that was a really funny animation thing. But this one, it didn't quite do it for me.
It kind of sounded like the Zelda fairy music.
Totally.
Anyway.
Yeah, I was expecting a weird bosomy woman to burst out of the water at that stage and replenish my health.
Does the A act establish once again that Springfield is on the sort of like East Coast? Because for them to be close enough to drive to like upstate New York, again, I know that this is always, that they're very loose with the geography of where Springfield is, but I feel like that's almost like a negative that they made it so that they were so close that they could make that drive.
So here's a little like deep dive into North American geography. But like if you were coming from the Midwest, for example, you'd come in through Detroit, not through Buffalo. So it really is like they're on the East Coast somewhere. And I think he hits like 14 hours at 80 miles per hour or something is what he says.
Equals long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you could actually go pretty far if you were doing that. You'd be further out than I am because I can drive up to Ontario in like 8 hours.
Yeah.
So they could be like in Florida. I don't know. So maybe not quite that far.
Because, as a quick way to sort of get into why they're going to Niagara Falls, I like that points idea, and the like, we paid off that credit card debt with worse credit card debt, and as a result,
really like that.
We finally have points. Yeah.
But that the beginning and end. Because that's the other thing at the end where it has that like post act where Lisa's doing a show and tell and brings in the Mountie who brings in Nelson's father, and Nelson's in Lisa's classroom, and like whatever joke they made didn't land because like that's not his class. Like it's just
exactly.
that was just there's an integrity break right there, and just one where it's like you have to do too much like explaining why he's there. Like it doesn't make sense. All right, well, I think we're here. It's time for our final notes.
Now it's time for our final notes. Everyone's final notes.
Our song parody that's based off the ABC News theme is lost on everybody.
Real international
go.
appeal. Yeah.
Nate, did you have any other parts from this episode you wanted to mention before we move on to the rankings?
Okay. I, of course, cataloged all of the movie references that I spotted.
Of course
Yay!
you did.
So I got to shout out a couple of those. The very end, of course, has a movie reference to "It's a Wonderful Life" with
Which I
Lisa
knew you
running
would love.
through town in Springfield, and she's like, "Oh, I missed you, I loved you," all of that. And fun fact: comic book guy is in the role of Mr. Potter, the villain for the movie. So I loved that. I'm pretty sure when they look through the binoculars or Lisa looks through the binoculars and she sees like the atoms, I'm pretty sure that the score is from Koyanis Katsi, a super artsy movie that Al Jean likes to reference.
It's come up a few times.
And then I also liked the Superman theme coming up when the beaver with the cape comes with the medicine when Lisa falls over the falls, which I think is a reference to Superman 2 where they go to Niagara Falls.
Right.
Oh,
Makes
right.
sense.
I thought they were just doing the old cliche of like the Saint Bernard with the whiskey barrel on its neck, but it's a
Maple
beaver.
A bit of
syrup.
that too, for sure.
How about you, Adam? Any other parts and moments from the episode you want to mention?
I did love because it felt like, again, a very Canadian observation, the line of if Canadians weren't too modest to brag, which we are, because that does feel very, very authentic. And then this is, again, speaking to the references thing, when Homer pulls up in his giant car, like ice car,
Yep.
I wondered if, and this, like, I have no evidence to support this, but I was wondering if it's a reference to Top Gear, because I don't know if you guys watch Top Gear, but there's a famous episode where they take a Toyota Hilux across the polar ice caps and try and reach the North Pole before a bunch of sled dogs go. And it is a big ass red truck and almost falls into the ice at one point, and that's what happens to Homer. And it's like the fact that it's a truck and it's red and it has the big tires and it falls into the ice. I was like, it feels like maybe this is a but like, is that way too deep of a cut? I don't know. Like,
I think this theory says more about you than about the show.
Anyway,
and your love of Top Gear.
I do love the old Top Gears, and I love that special. But no, yeah, like I the only other thing is just, again, to the Canadians calling out Canadians, I love the line of, for every Martin Short, there's a William Shatner. And that's we'll leave it at that.
And that was one where I was like, I don't think I knew that William Shatner was Canadian. So here we go. The show's always teaching me things. But that is one part of the ending that I did actually like, was that when Homer comes to save the day, of course he's driving like a Ford F-250 giant Hilux sort of car.
And even the line of, this is the smallest one they had.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is true. Detroit does make big cars.
Yeah, because the whole thing with the Quebecois on the ski-doos and them like, oh, we'll get refuge in the place I know will be empty, and it's some Detroit team empty stadium. It's like, haha, specific sports reference. I don't get
sports. Right.
Yeah, but I did like the showing up in the giant red truck. How about you, BT? Any other bits?
Yep, just two. So there's a bit where Bart and Lisa are in this, bouncy entertainment thingy, and Homer goes to Marge, hey, while they're bouncing, how about we do some bouncing of our own? And Marge's like, oh, that's more romantic than what you said at Fort Dix.
Yes.
I like that, too.
That one got me. I got a laugh out of that one. And then the home Lisa is staying in has a Stanley Cup-styled lamp in the background.
Oh, well spotted.
As in the hockey trophy, not the beverage consuming device.
No, nor anyone called Stanley Cup.
Ah, right. Thank you for clarifying.
Yep. So quickly, while we're on me, I do have to duck to work real quick. I don't know if you want me to just give a soundbite of my ranking.
Oh, yeah. Okay. BT, what would you like to rank this episode? Just because BT had to leave a little early doesn't mean you get to find out his ranking before the official ranking segment of the Simpsons Index. Gah. Anything else I want to say while I've interrupted the flow of the podcast? Listen to Starring Springfield, listen to the Springfield Googolplex, and sign up to our Patreon, and also have a good day. Well, thank you, BT, and have fun at work today.
I won't. It's the day before Father's Day weekend. It's going to suck.
Oof. And he works in liquor retail, so...
Gotcha.
Cool.
Well, best of luck.
Nice. Thanks, guys. Fun meeting you. Sorry I had to
yes,
bail.
You as well, man.
It's all right.
Don't worry. It's good to meet you. Thanks for having us.
And Elliot, feel welcome to do any impressions of me required for the rest of the recording. I hereby sanction any and all impressions.
Oh, you shouldn't have given me that legal power. I will abuse it.
I hope so, and I look forward to hearing it.
All right, catch you, man.
Gotcha.
All right, well, I only had a couple more notes. The Jeffrey Giraffe on the Toys R Us hanging himself was pretty bleak.
Yeah.
And then, the weird act break where he was like, yeah, that's right, come back to America. I found that really...
that was so weird.
What was that?
Yeah.
Where they're like, because it's right after the Mounties, like, we're going to get rid of you the way Canadians do or something. And then it just cuts to that.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get that.
Extremely bizarre.
Also, I don't know if this is intentional, but the other thing is Toys R Us went bankrupt in the States, but it's not bankrupt in Canada. It still exists up here. So I don't know if it's meant to be a reference to that, but yeah, it is still, the whole thing is very weird.
And I kind of like when they're talking about how dangerous America is, Bart goes, yes, the dangerous El Barto roams the streets. I don't know. I like when they make fun of how Bart isn't the bad boy anymore.
Right.
Canadians Fox News is actually news about foxes. And that's actually all my notes. But before we move on to the rankings, and this is usually BT's segment, so I'll do my best impression of him. Duh, I'm BT. This is the thing I'm going to ask you now. So what is the most important question we ask on the Simpsons Index is... if you could have a sandwich named after you, what would be that sandwich? So if we're walking into the Simpsons Index Deli, I'm going to order the Adam Schoales or the Nate Storring. What are we getting?
Oh, wow.
Whoever's ready to go first, because it's a big question, I know.
I'm not a big sandwich person. Well, no, sorry.
Another thing I'm going to roast you about later. I am such a sandwich guy.
I don't love cold cuts. So, and we don't have delis in Canada like you do in the US, Nate, especially in your neck of the woods. So
Yeah.
like sandwiches up here, Mr. Submarine, as referenced on the show. I will say, with that being said, I had a delicious roast beef sandwich from my local high-end grocery store here today. So maybe, yeah, it would be that. Although I love a pita wrap. This was like, always, so maybe mine would be like a buffalo chicken pita wrap with some feta cheese and tzatziki.
Yeah, because we're very loose with our definition of sandwich. We include wraps, hot dogs, all the rest. It's
Okay,
fine.
well then perfect. There we go. Then we nailed it. Perfect.
All right, how about you, Nate?
Okay, so I love sandwiches, number one, and I love weird sandwiches.
You would.
Just like, I'll try anything once. And one of the things that I discovered fairly recently that I love, so that I'll put my name on, even though I'm not from the South and that's where it's from, is a peanut butter and pickle sandwich with hot sauce.
Wow. Okay,
that sounds
It's
awesome.
so good. It's so good. You will not regret it. It's surprisingly delicious.
This is wild because just a couple of weeks ago, our guest Tempest, who's also a Canadian, said his sandwich was a peanut butter and pickle sandwich. Is this a Canadian
There you go.
thing?
It's a real thing. You can look it up. It's delicious.
But the Nate variant has hot sauce.
Hot
Interesting.
sauce. It's got to have hot sauce. It's like, think about it this way. It's like peanuts in Thai food, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
the savory peanut thing. And Adam's like wrinkling his nose.
All I'll say is that one of the first times Nate came over to my house, my mom made us lunch and he was looking for condiments to I don't remember what the food we were eating was, but I just remember that the condiment Nate added to it was oyster sauce that he found in the back of my fridge. So
That sounds right.
Like none of this is surprising to me, but also just like I hate everything about it.
Oh, it's resourceful and look, it might be just unlocking new potential flavors here. I got to give that a try. All right, well, it's time to rank this thing. On the Simpsons Index, we rank using a 6-point scale, which starts down the bottom at failure. Maybe if the episode was just meh, you give it a participant. But for the positive rankings, we got okay bronze, good silver, excellent gold, but for the best of the very best, you give cubic zirconia. I'm going to go first. I'm actually tempted by a silver for this one because it was actually a lot funnier, and especially compared to a lot of season 30 episodes. Yeah, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to give it a silver. How about, let's go with you, Adam.
I'm inclined to go bronze because I think from this discussion, the thing that we sort of discovered is that if you don't get the cultural references, the episode is going to fall a little flat. And while I obviously enjoyed those, the show is not, despite what me and every fan who watches the show wishes, it's not made just for me. So I think I have to take into consideration that for 99% of the audience, this episode may not succeed. So that's why I'm inclined to give it a bronze. Like I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, but I don't necessarily think that it's a great episode as a result.
Fair enough. And Nate, please finish it off.
I'm going to give it a silver too. I think for me, the big thing I think about is just like, again, if you're comparing it to other episodes in this micro genre of The Simpsons go-to, I'd say this is on the higher end of those. It's actually like has something interesting to say about the place. It's got a bit of a story that's at least rooted in characters compared to like, we're just going on vacation to this place. Wow, it's so wacky. So I feel like that all kind of puts it above, some of its other brethren, but ultimately, I still think that that's usually those episodes are not the best episodes of The Simpsons. So
yeah,
it's not quite, in that gold range.
BT, what would you like to rank this episode?
Look, I came in on a participant, and while it's certainly interesting, this resonates more with people familiar with Canada, and that it actually has a lot of, love and reverence for that. As a viewer who doesn't get any of those references, it was a experience throughout. I will stay with that. I'm going to stick with the participant.
Well, it's a weird average because, BT said participant, didn't he? So, silver, bronze, participant. It's like a shiny bronze, I think, from my quick math here. But either way, it'll definitely be our highest rated episode from season 30.
Wow.
The next one's not even coming close was, I'm Dancing as Fat as I Can, which was a dull bronze. And also My Sports, the one I mentioned before, where Bart gets into League of Legends and his gaming career takes him to Korea. So this one is a standout from that season, especially because, yeah, it's a lot of dreck. It's a dull participant season overall ranking.
Woof.
And yeah, this was our final episode to review from season 30. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this one.
Yeah,
thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely, and thank you for lending us your expertise. And if people haven't heard Springfield Googolplex, tell them all about it, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, the basic concept that I had and I pitched to Nate was I was like, okay, we're both weird film nuts, and so much of our knowledge of classic cinema was coming from parodies on The Simpsons. So I was like, what if we made a show that really just sort of analyzed all these movies that were parodied on The Simpsons? And that's how it started. And then Nate does what Nate does, and he decided to dedicate 2 years of his life to cataloging and databasing every Simpsons reference or every movie reference he could find from the first 13 seasons, which I'm so appreciative of. But I feel like I have to give him all the credit because I contributed so little to that. Although every once in a while I'll catch something that you don't know of. So, you know, I'm not entirely sitting on the sidelines. But yeah, it's basically, we pick a movie that one of us hasn't seen or hasn't seen in a while, and we come together to discuss it and the Simpsons episode that it sort of corresponds with. And it's been fun. We're coming up on, depending on when we're starting our next season very, very soon. It'll be coming up
September
at the end of
16th. We'll be back. We just did Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 1 alongside Goldfinger, and we'll be coming back with Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2 with Fire Walk With Me. Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. So yeah, if you're interested, hope you'll check that out.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't publish a lot of episodes. Our show takes a lot of work and a lot of research, and that's why we're at like what is our episode number? We're at like 40 something, whereas you guys, what did you say at the start of the episode?
I think
You're at like 350 or something. So
That's a lot of Simpsons episodes.
You don't have a large back catalog to listen to, so maybe that's a good thing. You know, jumping on the Springfield Googolplex train is less intimidating because there's less. And season 1 is the roughest of the bunch. You can probably just skip those. And if you don't like musicals, you could skip season 2 entirely as well. So, but.
No, well, I firmly state that it is a thing of quality over quantity. And, you know, as podcasters, you know, there's a pressure to do weekly releases no matter what you're doing, just get something out there. But I really appreciate your guys' approach. Like, as a fellow podcaster, I know the amount of effort you guys are going to in terms of editing and research and production, and it is just such a well put together show, and I am so impressed at the amount of work and a thoughtful conversation that just goes into it and behind every episode. And yeah, I can say from experience, it has encouraged me to go check out some of these movies that were like, that was a reference? What is this obscure thing? And
those are our favorite episodes, and we've been trying to do it every season to find at least one movie that the audience will go, wait, this is a real thing? Like, this exists? Because it is shocking how many things on this show they've done that is like, nope, that's actually a reference to something, and nobody else knows it, but now we know it, and we want to share that with the world. The case in point being Day of the Dolphin, which has to be the weirdest fucking movie that we have ever watched. Like, it is just nuts.
And yeah, that was one. Listening to the podcast is like, I'm not sure if I want to watch this movie, but this is a damn entertaining podcast. And like the other obscure one, Bart gets hit by a car. I had no idea that was even a reference to the old Walter Matthau movie. It's just crazy. And yeah, just highly encourage listeners to go check you guys out. And your website as well. And the data is so impressive. And yeah, you know, we're obsessed with spreadsheets. We love our data over here at the Simpsons Index. So it's just an absolute delight seeing people go to this much effort and detail for this. It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and it's
no
been
worries.
Great being on this show. I've also been following your show very carefully. So
thank
it's
you.
been, and especially starring Springfield as well, is like a wonderful companion piece to find out, about all sorts of equally obscure, interesting movies as well.
Yeah, well, just thank you for segueing into my plug now for, starring Springfield. So if Springfield Googolplex listeners are coming over here, checking you guys out, hope you'll check out mine and BT's movie podcast where we're reviewing the movies that star the cast of The Simpsons. And have you guys got any favorite movies that star Simpsons people in it?
I mean, like, I feel like I have to say Spinal Tap. Like, I know I like that movie a lot more than Nate, and I think to date is our longest episode. Like, I think we went like 3.5 hours on that. When the runtime of the podcast is double the length of the movie itself, you know that there's a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love that movie, and it feels very at home with the sort of the type of humor that I love and love from The Simpsons. So that would probably be my number one there.
Yeah.
And I'll keep it short. Maximum Overdrive.
Yes, that was our second episode that we did, and it's one that defies a rating system, you know.
Right, exactly.
That's valid.
Like, and yeah, checking out Letterboxd afterwards, it's like 1 star. Fucking love this movie.
Yep, that's the vibe. That's the vibe.
All right, well, check all that out. Links are in the show notes, but for now, that's the Simpsons Index for this week. Once again, thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks for having us.
And on behalf of BT Calloway, I'm Elliot Jay O'Neill. That's all the mustard in the house.
Thank you for listening to the Simpsons Index podcast, which is also an online spreadsheet available at thesimpsonsindex.com. We're also on social media. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, and on Threads. Links for all that and more are down in the show notes. And lastly, consider giving us a 5-star review. Why not? We'd do it for you. Now, there's no bonus scenes for this episode. Everything we left in was pure gold, so we'll catch you next time.